Hello and welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Soccer Show. We're talking Saturdays, not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, 6 games tomorrow. That I think it's the first time this season that we've had 6 games. I'm Adam Zdroik. I'm joined by Jordan Cooper and Ryan Belongia. Jordan's back. It's been a while. Jordan, welcome to the show. Have we done 6 games this season?
I don't think so. I think the last times we've had 6 games would be for Champions League group stage. I think we've done 5 before.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that this slate is 6 games because we'll get into some GPP strategy. I mean, the story overview of this slate is that there are 6 games. 5 are, I would say, a little bit more competitive. And then we have Liverpool as a big favorite over Norwich City. And the pricing of Liverpool is competitive enough on this slate that you may be rostering some of these guys. But as opposed to a 2-game or a 3-game slate, like in those types of slates, like it's almost impossible to avoid the highest total team. But on this slate with 5 other games to choose from, if Liverpool, don't go out and win 5-0 or anything, I think Liverpool is being extremely popular this slate, and I could see in large field GPPs that there could be enough goals amongst 5 other games that unless like Salah or Mane or Firmino like throw up a brace or a hat trick, it's quite possible that the winning GPP lineup could not include any Liverpool players.
Yeah. I mean, that's you see the implied goal total here for Liverpool if you're watching on YouTube. But Ryan, last week we highlighted Anthony Gordon. I think we're gonna talk about him again. And there's just a lot of options, even once you get past these Liverpool guys, there is a lot of options.
Before we get into that, can I give you props on Jacob Ramsey from last week?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think Ryan's mentioned Ramsey a couple of these recent ones, and
I didn't play him last week, but he was one of those punt options. I was only playing one lineup for cash, so he wasn't going to get into my cash lineup. But when I saw that he scored twice, I'm like, yeah, if I was playing GPPs, I would have played some Jacob Ramsey, and I at least want to give the tout 101 thing, right? Is to always parade around your wins. And also bemoan your losses on James Ward-Prowse getting there.
So both of those things, I thank you. I had a bunch of Ramsey in GPPs, but it didn't matter.
Say Rafinha.
Yeah, well, they were all with Rafinha for one. But yeah, no Coutinho, who went off as well. But yeah, this slate, just piggybacking on what Jordan said a little, it's interesting because Liverpool are in such a good spot, and on smaller slates, you would for sure target them. And, Salah, while expensive, isn't as expensive as we've seen him. So, you could argue that 6 games should spread out the ownership a little bit more. So, is it, do you target the best spot on the slate, which is Liverpool? I mean, does it make it okay to go that route in GPPs? Or, I mean, Jordan, you said you still think they're going to be very popular, and I do too. There's a lot of other spots you can go, and you probably won't get beat unless one of them scores a brace. But yeah, sometimes on these bigger slates, you wonder if the ownership is going to come off those top spots just a little to maybe make it optimal to go there.
Well, I think the ownership is going to go there because if you compare it to goal scoring odds, like we have on the RotoWire cheat sheet, which if you're a subscriber to RotoWire, you'd be able to see. So subscribe there, rotowire.com/soccer trial. Salah is minus 220. Mane is minus 145. Firmino is minus 115. And Salah's 10-2, not 12K. Mane's 8-4, not 10K. Firmino's 7,100, not 8,500. Like, commensurate with those goal scoring odds, that's what their prices probably should be. And then we have guys like, all the other forwards for all the other teams have odds that are under 50%, but somewhere in the plus 150-ish, plus 110, plus 170 type of range. And the discount that you get from going from a Firmino to a Broja or Che Adams, or a Mane to a Maupay or a Lukaku is just not that dramatic. That for their prices, really they should be more expensive. But with the fact that at forward, we'll get into this forward position. For if you're looking for cash games at forward, this is not a very good slate for you. I think you're going to be playing goal dependent players in your forward spots, most likely. There are a lot of midfielders to choose from. I think the midfield and the defender position is very strong this week. But from a floor perspective, the forwards are really not there. So, like, if I'm going to play goal-dependent forwards, no matter what, pretty much, why wouldn't I play underpriced Liverpool players, like, number one in cash games, because you don't really care that much about ownership in cash games. But even for large field GPPs, why am I not playing Mane over a Lukaku or a Lacazette or someone like that? I still think the ownership is going to be heavily inflated towards Liverpool because of that, and they should be the highest. They should be the highest owned, but at what extent? Should Salah be 60% owned in GPPs this late? Should Mane be 38 to 44% owned? Like, I'm not sure if you should get to that level. But you can't deny the fact that they're clearly the best forward plays on the entire slate.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And if they get to that level, I think it makes perfect sense to fade. There's a lot of other spots here. And the pricing just overall is a bit soft, even for some of the other teams.
Yeah, if you even want to, like, these guys still have a floor. Like, that's kind of what we're getting at here, because, like, they're cheap. They still have a floor. I just pulled up the numbers from the previous time these teams played. I think it was the opening match this season, 3-0. I guess Liverpool's already won this matchup 3-0 twice this season. And, like, Mane didn't make the score sheet. He still had 10 floor points, 3 shots, 3 chances created. Salah, 1 goal, 2 assists, 5 shots, 4 chances created. Like, that's, you can see the floor right there, but you can also see the upside in Salah. So you're like, your decision is going to be, you're either going to go with these Liverpool guys at a discount, or you got 5 other games to look at, really.
And really, if you look at the forward position for, like, guys that have traditional floors, peripheral set pieces, there aren't many of them. A lot of them are playing in the bigger underdog positions. Like, are you going to play Rajishka at 5,300 against Liverpool? Probably not. Are people that aren't even going to start? Gross may not even start for Brighton, and if he does, he may only play 60 minutes anyway, and he's splitting set pieces. Townsend's probably not starting for Everton at 7,200. I take a look at, like, Mbuemo at 6,000 away to Arsenal is not a really good spot. McNeil doesn't even start anymore for Burnley, and I look down here and it's like the two cheapies that I see, that if you wanted to, you could even do a dinky do if you want. I don't think it's the slate for the dinky do. You play Maxwell Cornet at 5,100, Burnley against Brighton. I'm not a humongous fan of him in cash games. He typically doesn't play 90. He has played 90 in 2 of the past 4 games, but I'm not a big fan of playing Burnley on the road to begin with. And then if he starts, Nathan Redmond for Southampton at 4,700. Won't have any set pieces or anything, but for an attacking, wide position attacking player for a home side, against Everton, who's not, been the best defensively, 4,700. Like, if he was just midfield only, Redmond would be like a meh. Like, I guess you could play him, but because he's forward eligible, he gets that little bit of a bonus to fill your forward spot. So I could see you playing it this way, but I mean, even in cash games on DraftKings, I still think it could still be optimal to just play 2 of the Liverpool forwards and just figure out the rest of your play 2 of the Liverpool forwards, play 1 of the Liverpool defenders, and then figure out the rest of your lineup from there.
Yeah, I think so too. You're not really giving up much. Like, who has set pieces up top? Bukayo Saka. I mean, he's 10K though. You don't really want to do that. I think going to Cornet's fine, just because there's no other forwards, at least cheap and mid-range forwards that have set pieces or a floor. And there's plenty of spots to spend up for. So punting at one of those forward spots seems okay. But 2 Liverpool forwards does too. I mean, this spot against Norwich is pretty good. Like, it should be Liverpool attacking, for 80 minutes of the game. So they're going to get floor points from, other ways as well, not just set pieces. I don't really have a problem with that. And then Pascal Gross, we can sort of toot our horns a little bit more here. We've been off him for quite a while. I think we forgot to even mention him on that last podcast. We had to remember to say something about him. But I check out some of the other soccer content sometimes, and he was like a core play, a top play, basically for everybody else in that matchup against Watford. And, he came off 60 minutes like he always does. Yeah, he started without McAllister, so it was just him. Monopoly set piece Gross away to Watford, and he plays 60 again. So, off Gross. I agree with Jordan. It's kind of, for cash games at least, kind of just got to be Liverpool, maybe Cornet. I don't really see much else.
I think it's kind of, well, if you do decide the 2 Liverpool, that kind of removes you from, I guess, Ward-Prowse, correct? Unless you're spending down at defender. That's the main. That's the main decision.
If you're going to play Trent Alexander-Arnold, we'll get into that conversation in a bit, but I think that when we're going to be talking about a $9,200 TAA, you can't compare him to other defenders. You have to compare him to James Ward-Prowse. Who are you going to play, JWP or TAA? And I think that we're going to lean towards TAA, truthfully, because he does fill a defender spot, but I would still play him in utility. But I think that's the main thing. Do you need to punt at a forward spot? Do you need to go down to a Cornet or a Redmond? And I'm not sure. It depends on your build. I think it depends on what you do in your second defender spot or second midfield spot, on whether or not you'd rather play a guy at that 3 to 5K level in one of those spots. And I think the opportunity cost at forward is high enough on this slate that I think I just rather I'm going to play two Liverpool forwards for cash games and
so
let everything else sort it out from there.
So you're not worried about the opportunity cost of James Ward-Prowse? I mean, he's going to be, probably decently popular in cash games, I would expect, and he's just been crushing. And it's a great matchup actually at home against Everton. I don't know. It's a tough decision. I'm the
biggest JWP person in cash. I always play him in cash no matter what. And I'm not sure on this slate. But to me, that's the choice of, do you play the second forward spot as a punt type of play, or do you end up fitting in James Ward-Prowse? I think there are some cheap midfielders that I don't mind. So I think, would I rather play $4,700 Nathan Redmond or Douglas Luiz at a similar price? I think I'd rather play Luiz for Aston Villa and then, play Salah, Mane up top, and then just not have to worry about Liverpool. It's just they're going to be so owned that if Liverpool puts up one goal, I'm not in trouble in cash games because everyone has these guys. And I don't think I really think it comes down to more of Trent Alexander-Arnold, because I could play other defenders. There are defenders on the slate that I don't mind slotting in, and 9,200 for Trent Alexander-Arnold. On the other hand, I still need to fill my forward spots. But in GPP, I think this is a great slate for GPP in the forward slot. And I'm looking primarily in the 6K range. Because really we're looking for at 6K, getting a goal and a couple of shots and having 18 points, is worth a lot compared to, if Salah only puts up 18 points, he's 10-2. I could use that 4,000 elsewhere. So looking at guys like Calvert-Lewin, 6,300, Ollie Watkins, 6,500, if he starts Havertz, so I think Lukaku may be a little bit more popular. But I mean, I'm looking in like this type of range, like Adam Broja, 5,600. Like, where can I find these cheap goals? Edouard, I'm not a big fan of playing Palace against Chelsea. But like this, would you agree that this is kind of the range? Like, I'd much rather, like, my problem comes in is like when it comes up to like Maupay and Lacazette and like the upper range where we start getting into where the Liverpool players are, that like I need them to outscore Liverpool. I need Liverpool to, like when I'm playing a player like Lacazette at 8,200, I'm essentially saying that I would need Lacazette to score 2 and Liverpool to score none in order to make up that whole gap because they're priced very similarly. But in the 6K range, like I don't mind the Liverpool forwards scoring 15 to 20 points because I could probably match them for 3,000, 4,000 cheaper and then use the money elsewhere to upgrade my lineup. But when you're playing the guys towards, when you're playing Saka, for instance, like you're in a if Liverpool, you need Liverpool 1-0 game where Virgil van Dijk has the center back goal, and all these Liverpool guys have single digits, and then to make up any ground on that. So like I don't want to build GPP lineups where I'm saying that Liverpool fails. I'm just building lineups where Liverpool wins 3-0 and no one scores 2 goals or no one has a goal and an assist, that the production just gets spread out enough that, yes, a winning lineup could have a Liverpool player because they did score 15 to 20 points each or something. But like there's other players, there's 6 games on this slate, the 5 other games, there'll be other guys that score those same points also, and they'll be much cheaper.
Yeah, I agree. I want these forwards in the 6K range for sure. There's a pretty good chance with there being 6 games and so many, decent options in this range that one of them is going to score 25 fantasy points. I mean, one of them is probably going to score a brace, at least could. So yeah, I want this range too. And I like that you said, yeah, it's not about Liverpool failing. It's just, at those prices, they're not necessarily going to be optimal if we get goals from other spots, which should happen with more games. I also agree, if you're playing Lacazette, you're playing him for 2 goals. If you're playing Saka, that's for him to score 25 and Salah to only score 15. I think Maupay is a really good GPP play because people just aren't going to want to play him. Sort of like you said, he's in that range, but he's in a great spot, home to Burnley, and one of those guys with, 2-3 goal upside that can sort of just win you the tournament. Because I don't expect him to be as popular as he should be for the goal scoring odds in a home match against last place Burnley. And then, yeah, all these guys you mentioned, I'll throw in Che Adams too, all in that range. Yeah, I want exposure to a few of them for tournaments for sure.
Yeah, you even have Pulisic down here. I don't know if you guys mentioned him. He's 5,700. He could start because Mason Mount's out. So, like, you're getting a Chelsea guy at 5,700 against Crystal Palace. Like, there's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of options. It's a 6-game slate. I just want to say, just in terms of cash games, I think that there's just more. It seems like there's more viable value options for midfield and defense. So, like that strategy of going 2 Liverpool guys, it just makes more sense. Like if you just look once we get to midfield and defense, there's just a lot more options where like these guys have actual floors. Like we like all these forwards, but like I like Broja at 5,600, but maybe not as like a cash option. I think there's just I don't know. Are you guys done with forward, or should we move on to?
Yeah, and I think there's tons of midfielders to play. The weird thing is that I'd love to play some of the higher priced midfielders, but I don't even think it's necessary. Like, like is it worth playing Hakim Ziyech at 9,500? I don't think so on this slate. Once we get into this range right here, like to me, Ziyech and Ward-Prowse, you're comparing to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Because it's unless you're doing something weird where you're not playing Salah, you're not playing Liverpool forwards, I don't see how you play either of these 2 guys with Trent Alexander-Arnold. So, if you had to choose, like I'm gonna play the Liverpool defender that has like a 15-point floor, split of set pieces, and goal scoring potential. I mean, like he's forward all the time.
You're picking Alexander Arnold over Ziyech, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't see who doesn't.
I just want to point out, I think Ziyech is going to have an exclusive role on set pieces. Like you just mentioned, Alexander Arnold's goal upside, but like obviously Ziyech has goal upside, and he could have an exclusive role in set pieces. They're going
You don't
against
think
Crystal
Alonso's
Palace.
going to not start? Isn't Alonso going to start?
Yeah, well, I forgot him, but they'll still have a split role, and Mount's even been getting subbed off in these Club World Cup matches. So I don't know. I kind of think that like they're both taking split set pieces. I think Ziyech's upside is slightly more, I'd say, if you're getting like a similar floor.
Yeah, but you don't get to fill a defender spot. Ryan, please, am I crazy for going? Why shouldn't I be playing Trent Alexander? If I had a choice between, I could only play one. Wouldn't it be TAA?
Man, I don't know what's happening to me, but
you're agreeing with Adam?
No, I don't know if it's that okay. So I don't know if it's that clear, but I don't think it's just like a slam dunk TAA over Ward-Prowse.
No. Okay, that's not that. I was talking about Ziyech.
Over Ziyech, yeah, probably just because there's uncertainty with that Chelsea situation and him getting subbed. Will he have all the sets? I mean, yeah, he probably will have most of the sets. He's been crushing. He's been two goals in consecutive games. He's been, playing longer, but yeah, it's still like too risky and he's more expensive. So I would go TAA there. Also because Liverpool's matchup at home against Norwich is better than Chelsea's away to Palace. Yeah. The other reason though, and I'm the first one to jam Alexander Arnold in, but there's quite a few defenders you can play on this slate. And so these midfielders, I'd like to pay up for two of them. I mean, I think there's guys with ceilings in the top range at midfield. So yeah, I mean, I could see myself playing two of the, mid-range defenders instead of Trent. It doesn't seem like there's as much, I guess. I don't know. There's guys that have similar floors to Trent. I mean, obviously not quite as high and maybe not quite as high of a ceiling, but I don't think you're losing as much by fading Trent on this slate. I don't know. It's a tough decision.
Yeah, but I also don't think you're losing that much by fading Ziyech or Ward-Prowse.
Okay. I don't want to play Douglas Luiz over Alexis McAllister.
No, okay, hold on. Now we're getting to the point that I'm talking about. Alexis McAllister, if Gross does not start, to me, Alexis McAllister should be James Ward-Prowse's price.
Yeah, I agree if Gross isn't in. So that would be sort of a priority for me.
Right. Well, so that's where I was getting towards. It's like, okay, if I put in McAllister into my lineup and then I put two Liverpool forwards into my lineup, you can't play like how do you play Ward-Prowse in that lineup and Trent Alexander-Arnold? You can't. So the only way to do that is either punting it forward or not playing them both or playing only one of them. So like to me, that's the decision. So if you're going to tell me to play Trent and James Ward-Prowse, then we're playing a Maxwell Cornet at forward or something or whatever, the cheapest forward you could find. And to me that's the decision. It's not a matter of, well, I'm going to play two Liverpool forwards and then like clearly play TAA over James Ward-Prowse. It's like, no, I can understand like, okay, now weighing them together. But I mean, to me, McAllister is the underpriced player. Like to me, like what's the difference between McAllister and James Ward-Prowse? And I go, McAllister should be $1,500 more expensive, assuming Gross doesn't start. And even if he does, it's not like his value goes dramatically down. But a home matchup against Burnley, there's no better matchup here other than Liverpool playing at home against Norwich. So why don't I want to play McAllister and Trent Alexander-Arnold in probably the best matchups that they'll have the entire season?
Yeah, so that makes it tough. But I guess would you rather play? I guess not play Ward-Prowse and you play Luiz instead, or not play Alexander-Arnold and play like, I don't know, Firmino instead.
Why can't you play? Why not both?
Sure, both. I guess what I'm saying.
You guys are talking Douglas Luiz, but I think there's a lot of midfielders. Right. I just used him as an example. Yeah. There's a lot of midfielders.
There are guys at the 3K range that you could pump with.
Right.
So you don't even like I could see Douglas Luiz at 4,800 be like he has a floor, he has a limited ceiling. He's that quintessential get me 6 to 7 points and you're kind of there with him type of thing.
If that's what you're looking for, I kind of like Jacob Motor at 4,400 a little more. Like he's going 90s.
Dude, down at the bottom. I mean, I know we're skipping around, but if Conor Gallagher's out, I don't mind playing a 3K Will Hughes or something like that. Like he could easily get how many points? See, the difference is at the bottom scale, $1,000 or $2,000 in salary is a larger percentage difference between the players. So when we're talking about what's the difference between a 9K forward and an 8K forward or 9K mid, like James Ward-Prowse to Alexis McAllister is $1,400, which is not the same as a $4,400 guy to a 3K guy because that's like 25% of their entire salary difference. So Douglas Luiz getting 7 points and Will Hughes getting 5 points, you're getting a lot more by getting the 5 points from Will Hughes than you are getting the 7 points from Douglas Luiz. So on that bottom range, there are 3K guys that you can play. I mean, even there are 3K defenders that you can that are in that similar boat of can they get me 5 points? Can Eric Peters get me 5 points? Can at 4,100 we have the Southampton fullbacks. If Livramento's in, can he get me 5 points? Sure, why not? I mean, you get me more than 5 points. So I look at all of those types of things and go Douglas Luiz to me isn't oh my God, he's the value option. He's like that placeholder, Joe Matinho type of guy.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on Luiz
type of guy.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know why we got on Luiz. I mean, I was just using him as an example. Just to be clear, I don't have any interest on this slate. He's not going to be in any of my lineups, and I don't think you should play him in cash games. I play Ashley Westwood over him. I mean, if I needed the salary,
right. Well, there you go. 3,600. He's going to split set pieces. He's in that same, but he's that guy that's give me 5 points, and he's my punt play, and he could easily get to 5 or 6 points than the 5K or 6K forwards you'd punt with anyway. Mm-hmm. But you're only spending 3,600 on him, right? Like Douglas Luiz and Ashley Westwood to me are almost the same person. It's just that you save $1,200 by playing.
And one has a much better match. I mean, the matchups are kind of opposite, but yeah, I agree.
Right, but the same type of player. But since there are options in that midfield spot, and there are suitable sub 5K defenders, this to me, this buys into the more of the notion of why aren't I spending up for? Well, really, it comes into you're playing three defenders if you're playing Trent Alexander-Arnold. And if you're playing Trent Alexander in the 3-defender lineup, he's in the utility spot, which means it could be James Ward-Prowse. Also, is that going to be the 1v1 of the slate? In cash games, whether or not you decide to play, can you play both? Here's the question, Ryan: can you play both of them and still play 2 Liverpool forwards?
Probably not. I was going to say you just have to play one.
You can. You just can't play him with McAllister. That really.
Right.
To me, Ryan, for cash games at least, assuming Gross does not start, I don't think there's any build that I would build that doesn't have Alexis McAllister in it.
Same with me. I wouldn't if Gross wasn't in, he would be the first guy in my lineup.
We're talking cash and GPPs, no matter the contest.
Well, for cash,
okay.
For cash, definitely. For GPPs, at least for me, yeah. I mean, he's still going to be one of the first guys in my lineup. And I like that Jacob Motor call, Adam. He's hopefully going to win me a King of the Pitch ticket tomorrow.
I knew you liked him. You've mentioned him many times.
You're playing the mega qualifier too. Okay, so I know.
Yeah,
I know to pump up the ownership of that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're talking Liverpool stack here, would you guys consider Fabinho? Like, I guess this could be in cash games too, because we're talking value midfielders. But Fabinho's 5,000, Henderson's 4,500, and there's a chance guys like Chris Jones starts 4,200. Harvey Elliott's down at 3,200. Are those reasonable guys here if you just want to go full Liverpool in case they win 5-0 kind of a thing?
I would say yes. Yeah, decent prices on those guys, and we've seen Liverpool midfielders score and assist quite often, and it's such a good matchup. So yeah, I think those are decent options. Tournaments in that range. We mentioned Motor. I mean, how could we not mention Jacob Ramsey again? It's home to Watford, so a really good matchup. Salary is basically the same. I mean, sort of everybody's talking about him now, but that's because he's been so impressive. He doesn't really have a floor, but he gets forward quite a bit, and you can tell that he's got more goals in him. So, yeah, I think all those options are good for tournaments.
Yeah, well, from what you guys were saying earlier, so I just put together. I went cheaper, so this isn't Salah. I went Mane, Firmino, Ward-Prowse, Alexander-Arnold. For my other 4 spots, I have 4,150 remaining. So, like, you can do it. It's just going to
Yeah,
be.
but you don't have McAllister in there.
Oh, you wanted McAllister in there
Yeah,
too?
McAllister's a must. It has to be in there.
So you wanted these 5 guys in here. Okay.
Well, isn't that the point that I'm making, that you can't do it?
You got 3,100 left. So we need Angus Gunn for sure. Oh, you can do it. You can do it.
You need $2,500. You need the cheapest center back on the slate in order to do
Yep, you need 2 center backs is what it comes down to.
And that's without Salah in your line.
Without Salah, yep,
That's
Mane and
and
Firmino.
Yeah, good luck with that. Take my head back.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I still think I don't think two Liverpool forwards might not be the right move.
Yeah, but then do Salah plus Redmond or Salah plus Cornet. Like that I could see being reasonable. Would you agree, Ryan, maybe that you're probably playing 2 Liverpool players in your cash lineup regardless of what they are?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
And if you're not playing Trent Alexander-Arnold, play Andrew Robertson then, at least. For 7,700.
Yeah, even I mentioned in my article, but I could see Liverpool rotating here. So Tsimikas could start too, and I'd be willing to go there too. That's a big enough discount between him and Trent. Yeah, I don't know. Are we moving on to defender or?
I guess so.
Might as well. I think we touched on a lot of stuff for midfielders. So,
do we play Alonso at 7,500? I think if Alonso and Ziyech are both in, I think they're both kind of overpriced.
Yeah, I can't play. I'm just like not a Marcus Alonso guy. It burns me sometimes, but not when Ziyech is in there. And Chelsea switch up sets so much. And I know, we've seen Alonso take a bunch of them some games, but when Ziyech is in there, he's going to have half at most. Yeah, I don't know. It's expensive. I'd rather play a Liverpool guy than Alonso. And there's guys cheaper than Alonso that are almost as good.
I don't think there are any must-play defenders, though. There's just a lot of guys that I would like to play.
I don't really either. I think like Lucas Digne, he's in a good spot and taking most of Villa's sets. Home to Watford is pretty safe. I think the Brighton guys are good for tournaments. And Firmino can be, I think, rostered anywhere. He's the 4,500. Somehow keeps taking most of Watford's corners. And he has, 9 crosses, 8 crosses, 7 crosses. He's gone 90 minutes in 2 of those games. I think that's like worth the risk at that salary. But you're right. There's not a guy that I'm just jamming in. I can't like figure out a best play. Like all these guys are decent options.
Right. Even I think the Southampton fullbacks are fine.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But it's one of those things where it's like, I want to play, if you include the Liverpool guys like TAA and Robertson, it's like, I want to play 3 of these guys, but I don't know what 3 I'm playing. It's just like, it could end up me playing Robertson, Cucurella, Firmino, and then or it could be Trent Alexander-Arnold, Digne, and Livramento, and the 3v3. I'd say, yeah, okay, that whatever it is,
it's weird.
However it works out, it works out.
Yeah, I agree. As weird as it sounds, I think I would probably have Firmino, just like based on the fact that he is, sort of the cheapest guy that could have, the best games, I guess. I don't really know, I guess, how to word that better, but he's sort of like the cutoff where, you could see him doing better than Digne. You could see him doing better than the other guys in the 6K range. And there's sort of no one below him. I guess, yeah, Walker Peters is okay, but
I don't think Jonjo Kenny, like, he's not a guy we usually talk about, but like, he started at left back last match, went 90, 4,100. I mean, I maybe, like, if that's what you're stuck with, 4,100 maybe, but
I'd rather play Livramento if he started.
Yeah, just because he's at home.
Well, because Alice is a more attacking player.
I mean, I would agree. I agree. I didn't see. Is he going to start? I would like him at that salary.
Livramento, he's back from his issue. He could start.
I know, Adam. Who are you going to have in your GPP lineup? Especially if you're jamming in Alexis McAllister.
Oh, that's right. Well, this jammed in lineup here. Yeah, go for it. Who's your guess?
Well, I mean, it has to be Shane Duffy, right?
That's right. He is going to start, but he's 3,300.
You have no problem. You were counting rostering center backs at 4K that were absurd, right?
That was on a 3-game slate.
Last slate, actually, Webster was the one that scored the center back goal. Last week or whatever? I know, because some guy had him in head-to-heads against me, and I'm like, who rosters Adam Webster? Well, apparently the guy that took $215.
Oh, man.
It's one of those things where all of a sudden your green number goes down, and you're like, how did it go down on that goal? And it's like, apparently one of my how do you get there in that lineup? Okay. I'll leave those head-to-heads up in the lobby for next week.
Yeah, that lineup probably had Webster and then Lamptey at like 6,000 as a midfielder. I noticed Lamptey's back down to defense for some reason.
Makes him much more viable now.
Yeah. He was just midfield only in that last match, and then he, of course, he had 21 points with an assist. So
it's just unbelievable. I know. The slate where doesn't matter. Yeah, it's slate where obviously I would have jammed him, but because he played midfield, didn't play him, But yeah, okay, so I'm going to actually say for tournaments, I think like a center back, I guess it doesn't really matter which one. Duffy looks good. I don't know. Rudiger's fine. I guess more viable than I would normally consider. And that goes back to like my point about Firmino. So you can totally see him just scoring 4, 5, 6 points. Plenty of times it's going to happen. So you wouldn't really lose out a lot there, and you still give yourself some goal upside. And not only that, like if you're rostering Salah and Ward-Prowse or whoever, you're paying up for guys, you're going to have to punt somewhere. So I'm surprisingly more okay with it on this slate.
I disagree with you completely.
Okay.
Let me make my point.
Yeah.
I think center backs are the worst plays on this slate.
Okay. Explain. Okay.
Here's the reasoning. I've gone towards your line of thinking with defender is the hardest position to get a lot of points from. And we have 6 games and we have all these defenders. Like, it's quite possible that the winning GPP lineup will get at least 35 points out of their 2 defender spots, right? So something 16 and 18 or something, at least 30, right? So like guys like Digne and Kiko and Cucurella and like the higher end stuff. I'm not even talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Like they're priced so high that they need 15 points. But like Matty Cash and the Southampton guys and the Everton fullbacks and all these guys here like have reasonable paths to 12 points. Like just without a goal, without an assist, they have reasonable paths to 12 points. A center back's only reasonable path to 12 points pretty much is a goal. Now, on a 3-game slate, there aren't that many on a very small slate. Like, there may not be many defenders that score 12 points because there aren't that many games. So getting the center back that scores, 14 with a goal is much more valuable. But we have 12 teams to choose from. Yeah, Norwich, you're probably not playing defenders from. Yeah, you're probably not playing, you could play Burnley defender, but pretty much it's kind of like Norwich is the team that you throw out completely. But anything else, it's like, well, Burnley could score a goal through a header. It's like, and they score a goal. You get a goal, 14 points for 2,800. It's like, dude, I could find those points elsewhere. I mean, like, there's no reason to play unless you're playing all the way down. But like to play a $3,500 center back or something, play like Virgil. How much is like Van Dijk is 4,200. Like, is there a reason to do that on a 6-game slate? If we were talking about 3-game slates, I'm with Adam. Let's talk about maybe Samir gets a goal. Okay, we'll talk about whatever center back du jour of the day that he wants to talk about on every week on the podcast. I don't mind. On a 6-game slate, like, we have enough defenders you could get 30 points out of your defender slot without needing a center back. And pricing is not, if Liverpool was 12K, if Salah was 12K and Mane was 10.5, and you're like, the only way for me to build a Liverpool onslaught is to play a $2,500 3K defender. Okay, I could give it to you even on that, but they're not priced up enough that why do I need to play a 3K center back on this slate, even if they have goal scoring potential? These guys score 3, maybe 4 goals a season. And when they do, it's not like they score. It's not like these guys, when they score, 22 points. It's like, no, even with the clean sheet, like 15 or something like that. It's like, it's so much easier for a 3K midfielder even to get to 12 to 15 points than a center back when we have so many to choose from on this slate.
Right. So, I agree. I think you explained that perfectly. I don't want to come off like that's the route I was leaning towards. I've made five lineups so far that I sort of have in blocks, and not one of them contains a center back. So I do agree with you. The reason I brought it up was because it is possible that like 5 points from one of those defender spots is still going to be fine in GPPs, just because there could be like a greater differential in the midfield forward spots if some of these expensive guys go off, if some of the, if Ward-Prowse and McAllister both score over 20, and say, these Will Hughes, Westwood types score 4, 5, or whoever you punt there. If no popular punt midfielder punt forward scores, like, you could get like a big enough differential there. And it sort of just went back to the point where we didn't necessarily think any of these defenders were like smash plays, with the exception of TAA. So it's not like for sure that they're all going to score 15. So it is possible to win these tournaments on bigger slates when the ownership is going to be more spread out, with somebody failing in one of the defender spots. Again, I'm also
with one of them failing and then having Maupai has a hat trick.
Right.
Like, so you have 1 or 2 players that don't. We're not talking about Salah putting up 22 points. We're talking about him putting up 42 points. We're talking about Maupai having a hat trick on top of that. And it's like, well, you'd rather have 80 points out of your forward slots in total and then 5 points out of one defender spot than have like 18 out of all of your spots combined.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're right. You're absolutely right. From an optimal standpoint, it doesn't make sense to play a center back, especially on larger slates, and especially when you have other good defenders with floors like we do. So yes, I agree.
So from an optimal,
I didn't think I would be the one to talk you out of playing the high price defender.
No, I didn't have them in there. I was just trying to make an argument, but yeah, I'm on your side.
All right. So goalkeepers, Alisson, who has money to spend on him? 5,900. Like, is this a reasonable, like, outside of GPPs? Yeah, throw him in there. Hope for the 10 points plus. But in cash games, like, are people gonna be able to afford Alisson there?
I think if you're not playing Salah, you play Alisson to block. You do my strategic move of, even it could most likely goalkeepers and forwards are correlated to each other, right? Even though, goalkeeper assist, no, not for that reason. Is that obviously the ceilings of the forwards equate to wins and clean sheets for goalkeepers. So like if you're like, well, Salah's going to be, if you're playing like cash games, you want to play your Mane Firmino lineup. I would prioritize Alisson because if Salah has 2 goals, most likely Alisson ends up with double-digit points anyway. So you get to mitigate one of the goals at least, right? If Salah only scores 1, who cares? He's 10-2. If he has 16 points, it's not, even if he's 70% owned, it may still not kill you. But the combination of the two, like if you're going to play Gunn and not Salah, like in your cash lineup, like you better hope Salah doesn't do well, because it's not like if he does well, Gunn doesn't get double-digit points, obviously, unless he has like 8 million saves. So like to me on this slate, the Alisson is the most underpriced goalkeeper on this slate because of the way DraftKings does their goalkeeper pricing, because the clean sheet odds, according to the RotoWire cheat sheet, Liverpool 86% chance to win clean sheet, 60%. Arsenal 65% win chance, 47% clean sheet. Then Brighton is 58% to win, 46% clean sheet. It's like the $200 difference between Ramsdale and Alisson is a joke. Like it should, they should be like $600 to $800 apart, right? And then you look even at, if I'm going to play like Renato Sanchez at 5,300, like I'd rather play him over Ramsdale, because for 400 less, you get pretty much the same clean sheet odds. Your win chances go a little bit down. So to me on this slate, unless you're obviously mixing it up in the mid-range for GPP purposes, you're either paying for Alisson or you're going all the way down. And my style, truthfully, is that you could play Angus Gunn in your cash lineup, even with 3 Liverpool players, because you're paying all the way down. You're still getting some saves. The downside is he could also have -8. So my preferred method is to probably play like Raya at 3,700, or Foster at 3,800, or Guaita at 3,900, because it's much less likely I have a Chelsea player or an Arsenal player in my lineup, and possibly no Aston Villa player in my lineup. So to me, I mean, I don't know if this is faulty or not. It's what I've done for 6+ years, is that even in cash games, I'd rather not have guys that, in order for them to make their value as outfield players, takes away from my goalkeeper. Like, I don't mind like you could play James Ward-Prowse against the Everton keeper. Guys that could get there through accumulation and set pieces, they don't need a goal or an assist to get
forwards.
Right. It's those forwards. So playing 2 Liverpool forwards and Gunn, the only time it was ever viable in the history of DFS, to me at least, was Champions League Ronaldo, where he just shoot 14 times regardless. And
right,
like you could play the winning GPP lineup would have Ronaldo with 38 points and the goalkeeper against with 14 anyway.
You could have said that for Wednesday with Lewandowski against Salzburg's goalkeeper there, because that one was that was kind of that situation. But
man, that was painful. Yeah, I know. I agree though. It just doesn't look right. I don't want to play 2 guys that I'm hoping are going to score goals, against the goalie. I agree with you, even for cash games, and even if I don't play them. For tournaments though, while I'd like to spend up, it just seems like goalkeeper is probably a spot to spend down. Out of these cheap guys, Guaita, Foster, Raya, Gunn, because there's so many of them, like it's almost likely that one of them scores 10 or one of them comes close to what one of the top guys do. And, saving $2,000 or so, you can use that on this slate. Sure. Yeah, I
was just going to say, like on the opposite end of Sanchez there, like we've seen Brighton held scoreless numerous times this season, and we know Pope is going to get saves. Like he's 4,100.
Definitely.
That just seems like I don't know, incorrect pricing, I guess. Just in terms of
I
Brighton.
agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have. You make a good point. I should have mentioned Pope, and like I just didn't because it's just burned in my brain that I have McAllister and Motor, and like I'm going for these guys to score braces. So
yeah, but do you have Maupay?
Sure, yes, some Maupay too. So like
looking at the numbers, I just scrolled through Pope's game logs here. He doesn't have a negative number yet this season, and I just jinxed it. But that's just a stat for the listeners there.
Yeah, and somehow Burnley have like been even keeping a few clean sheets here and there, and like they only allowed 1 to Liverpool, they only allowed 1 to United, and then they had a bunch of clean sheets before that, even though they're in last place. So yeah, I know I never mind rostering Pope. I should have mentioned him in there too. I just meant one of these cheap guys is probably going to do okay. So that's the type of construction that usually would have the best chance to win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you Ryan in large field GPPs on a 6-game slate? Because here's another thing. On shorter slates, I don't mind. On larger slates, I do. The correlation between forwards and goalkeepers, right? So let's say you don't play any Liverpool. I'm not playing Salah, not playing Mane, Firmino, Trent, not playing Robertson, or anything like that. Like, those are the lineups I would not have Alisson in either. Like, to me, would you play a non-Liverpool stack type of lineup with Alisson, like an Alisson, like, oh, I'm going to play everyone else and then play Alisson plus Robertson? And to me, on a 6-game slate, if I'm looking for ceilings, like the whole point of paying up for Alisson is to get a win and clean sheet, but that's more correlative to all these high-owned Liverpool forward lineups that I'd almost rather the game be, Norwich score 1, and it's a 1-1 game at Anfield. There's a 14-minute red card from someone. The Fabinho gets carded or something like that. Where Liverpool they fail, but like I don't want to have Alisson. I don't because I could see because if you're not going to pay up for Liverpool forwards, you have the money for goalkeeper, right? And especially if you don't pair like Trent Alexander-Arnold there. But to me, it seems like there's enough teams on this slate that if I'm building a lineup based around the story that Liverpool fails, I wouldn't want to have any Liverpool players, including the goalkeeper, even if it ends up being a 0-0 game. Even if it ends up being a 1-0 Liverpool game and Thiago is the one with the goal and Alisson does get 14 points, there's still 5 other games. Alisson's 14 points is not necessarily needed. I mean, I could get 8 points out of any of the cheap goalkeepers. To me, the build, the contrarian build is to go cheap at forward. So you're playing something like this: Calvert-Lewin plus Anthony Gordon for that goal assist type of thing. You play we'll include Adam on this lineup. John Joe Kenny is in it also. You got to throw in John Joe Kenny because Everton scores 2 goals, and one's from Kenny to Calvert-Lewin, and one's from Gordon to Calvert-Lewin.
Perfect,
right? Then you play let's see. You play Maupay in there, Maupay and Cucurella, something like that. You play some other cheap midfielder, and then you play like Renato Sanchez in that lineup. Like,
are you talking about the Lille midfielder, Renato Sanchez?
Robert Sanchez,
whatever.
yeah. Not the Lille midfielder.
Like, and then you play like instead of Ward-Prowse, you play like Hakim Ziyech. You play like a Ziyech Lukaku. Like to me, Chelsea and Arsenal are the 2 teams that are going to go significantly underowned, and probably rightfully so for their prices. That if you're not going to play Liverpool, I think jamming in, like, can you get Ziyech, Ward-Prowse, and McAllister into your lineup and play the top-heavy 3 midfield build? Like,
I like that. Those are the type of unique constructions that win GVPs. Yeah, absolutely.
Or Gordon, you throw Gordon in there, and then you pair each of them with someone that could score a goal. So if they have McAllister, you have Maupay. If you have Ziyech, you have Lukaku. If you have Ward-Prowse, you have Broja or something like that. And then you pair one of them with a defender, and then you play like that. But instead of thinking in terms of, well, I'm not going to play Liverpool, and then I'm going to build a lineup that looks similar to Liverpool lineups, right? Because like anyone that's playing two Liverpool forwards cannot jam in like because especially if you're playing two Liverpool, imagine if you're playing a Liverpool lineup, two Liverpool forwards and Trent Alexander-Arnold. You essentially cannot play Ziyech, Ward-Prowse, and McAllister together. Right. And then you also probably can't play Marcus Alonso or Lucas Digne or something like that. So I'm just thinking in terms of, if you're not going to play the Liverpool forwards, go down, try to get the cheap goals at forward, and then just jam in what would be considered a floor type players, and just like hope they go off for, they get involved in on the score sheet. They could put up 30 points with their peripherals. Like to me, that's more of the GPP way than thinking in terms of like even like Lacazette or Saka or the guys up top there. Just like make lineups that not only fade Liverpool, but don't even look constructed similar salary distribution as Liverpool lineups.
Right. No, yeah, great points. Just only thing to sort of add or push back on was about, if you would roster Allison with just one of the defenders. Like I agree with your line of, I agree with your line of thinking. I just wanted to say that, it might still be okay because, if you don't have any other Liverpool, you're already sort of getting different. And then these, whichever Liverpool defender you play, you still want them to assist. Liverpool don't have to fail. They can win 2-0. They assist to Salah. He scores 18 points. They assist to Mane and Firmino. They each score 15. Like those guys still probably aren't going to be on the winner, not only because of their salary, but also because they're taking up a forward spot that could be had by someone who scores a hat trick. So, the Liverpool defenders are still the best plays on the slate. So you'd still, want them to get an assist and score 20 points, and whoever scores the goal, it still probably doesn't even matter. So, I mean, you can sort of look at it both ways.
Yeah, I do want to say, just for this fade Liverpool strategy here, we never read off the odds at the beginning of the show, but if you're looking on youtube.com, our show, we got odds pulled up here, rotowire.com, free 10-day trial, rotowire.com/soccer trial. You can get cheat sheets and everything else we have to offer. But so Liverpool, obviously what we've been talking about, 2.74 implied goal total. But the other five favorites, they're between 1.6 and 1.9. So like your strategy can be looking at any of those, five favorites really, and you could still be different than the majority of people. There's not like one that stand out. Sure, Arsenal home against Brentford are more, but like they're 0.17 more than Aston Villa against Watford. Like there's no one else that really stands out. So there's a lot of ways you can go if you want to, fade Salah, fade those Liverpool forwards. So
yeah, you're not forcing a fade. There's other decent spots.
Yeah, but hour long here. This is a massive slate here. So you guys have anything else? I think we touched on pretty much everything, but you got anything else?
You want me to talk more? I talk enough as it is.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that was good.
All right, yeah. We'll cut it off at an hour. People need time to put together their lineups after listening to us. So, but thanks for listening. This has been talking Saturday's 6-game slate at DraftKings. We're hoping there are no postponements for weather, for rain, for wind, whatever. So far, so good. If you've been listening on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And the same goes for podcast form. This has been incredibly long discussion about a massive slate, and a lot of decisions will be made in the next 24 hours. So good luck with those. And last week we bet on Anthony Gordon. Is there someone that we've talked about that we want to highlight here going into Saturday? McAllister? Are we going to cheer for McAllister? Is that our guy?
I definitely am. I can get behind that. Let's try to keep the streak going.
All right, let's do it. Or Alexis McAllister, the Argentinian. I always forget he's Argentinian because of his name, but that's where he's from. But thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Ryan. You can find them at Blender HD, and Ryan's at Ryan Belongia. I am at Zdroik. Thanks for listening, and we will see everyone next week. We will also have Champions League as usual. So make sure to listen to that. But thanks, guys, and we'll see everyone shortly.
Yep. Thanks, guys.